Well, great. Let's get things kicked off here. Welcome to today's webinar, Spring Cleaning Your CRM to Scale Your Firm with Wealthbox and Simplicity Operations. Welcome all who have joined us. My name's Andrew Ladwig, Director of Business Development here at Wealthbox. I work with all of our partners, including Simplicity Operations, as well as Kate Guillen here. With that, Kate, we'd love to hear a little bit of your background.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you everybody for participating. I'm excited to get to chat today. My name is Kate Guillen and I am the founder of Simplicity Ops. I've been working in the investment management industry for about 10 years in an operations and administrative capacity. Introduced to, a CRM when I was the operations manager at an RIA. We're really only using it as like a glorified Rolodex, if you will. I'm sure you hear that, but I recognized pretty quickly that it had the ability to solve a lot of the, operational issues that were affecting our firm. And so I really dedicated myself to mastering the CRM and really taking advantage of all of the available functionality to help solve the operational issues that were affecting our firm by building a contact management system, a task management system, calendar, pipeline, and account management systems to help us just really dial in our internal processes. Then I, work to develop a proactive client service model and organize that within the CRM as well, so that we could deliver, a highly personalized client service experience. And then, once I was introduced to workflows, it was kind of a game changer. We really utilized workflows to then help execute our, desired client service experience. And so, it took years to become masterful, but ultimately was time well spent, as I'm sure you can imagine, because it really did, organize our internal operations, standardize the way we, the way we operated, and allowed us to really take our client servicing to the next level. And so fast forward to today, I started Simplicity Ops as a way to, offer our expertise to you guys, firms and advisors, to help you all get the most out of your CRM so that you can spend, more time doing what you love to do, spending time with your clients and less time worried and stressed about your internal operations. So today's conversation is timely, with the start of a new quarter and the beginning of spring. It's a great time to spring clean your database. And I'm looking forward to sharing some best practices and tips and tips and tricks to organize your CRM. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And Kate, as you and I have gotten to know one another and knowing your background with Simplicity, not only working and heading up operations for a firm, but now working with firms that come from quite a few different backgrounds, right? And at the end of the day, all of them are looking to get better, more efficient, and more importantly, have a better client experience for their firm. Along with that, I think one of the things that you hear and I hear on my end all the time is this all sounds great, but what's my first step, right? What's my first step into scaling my business, whether it's more time, more clients? What does that first step normally look like for the firms that you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I firmly believe that you need to create an organizational structure utilizing your CRM. It's so often that we get into, advisory practices and see just like so much tech piled onto so much tech. And there's never been a framework or an organizational system in place to be able to support all of that technology. And so people are just spinning their wheels and spending too much time trying to figure out where to go, to figure out what they need to be working on, when really the core focus should be just building a solid organizational, operational foundation within your CRM.
And that's really at its core, the CRM functions along that side. Now, with Simplicity, you all look at things with these 5 core competencies. Do you want to give just a touch of background as to how you've come up with this and kind of where this fits from an implementation standpoint?
Yeah, exactly. So here at Simplicity Ops, we believe that your CRM should be the hub of your practice for managing, what we call our 5 core competencies, or the 5 core functions of your CRM: managing your contacts, managing your tasks, having a centralized firm calendar, having a centralized pipeline management system, having a data feed set up to be able to see your clients' accounts in the CRM so that, we've got reports up at the top here so that you can run reports and find accurate information. And honestly, just be able to operate more efficiently without having to go to 10 different places to figure out what's going on. All of this is possible within Wealthbox.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we open up, if you want to open up Wealthbox here, as you're thinking about that and using CRM as the core of the practice, and going back to that spring cleaning idea, what are the best practices to get your CRM in gear, in order, and ready to go?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start first just by modeling kind of like a daily best practice for just getting organized in Wealthbox when you first log in the morning. We train a lot of CRM users, and it is so painful for me to watch people fumble around in the CRM. And so if I can give anybody a pointer when they start their day, open up the 4 most commonly used tabs in your Wealthbox, okay? And although I like this dashboard, it's a lot of information, and I find it very helpful if I have to log back in and kind of see what's going on in the firm, have a nice overview here. But I like to break this out a little bit more intentionally and have these 4 tabs open, starting with my firm calendar. All right. So, this is where we're going to have an overview of what's going on over the course of the week. The next tab I open up, I'm just right-clicking here, opening up a new tab. There are my tasks. All right. My action items or responsibilities for the day, the week upcoming. We'll get into this. The next tab I open up are my workflows here, so I can see, what I need to be working on. And then the last tab I open up are my contacts. And so the reason I bring this up is I watch users like in the middle of putting in a note, get a call, need to open up the calendar, need to enter a task, and you're just unnecessarily fumbling around. And I have found that when you organize your day like this and just start by opening up these 4 tabs, it's a much more fluid process being able to kind of shift gears when something comes up or you have to look something up. So start your morning by opening up these 4 tabs within your CRM. The next step, in terms of getting things organized, one of our first core competencies is contact management. And if I can make a recommendation to anybody, it is to start by organizing the contents of your database. Think about who are these people in your database and how, from an organizational or a contact hierarchy, how does it make sense to organize them? And so I put together this document that I want to share with everybody. And I should start by saying that all of these documents are available for download on our website. We'll give everybody a link at the end of this conversation, but you will have access to all of these free downloads. But essentially, this style guide is, kind of what we call a glossary to your database. You can see here, the contact type is the highest level used to organize contacts in your CRM. They're mutually exclusive. Each contact can only be one. Okay. So at the highest level, this is how we're going to organize contacts. Then we're going to use a custom field to further define who these people are within the contact segmentation, if that makes sense. And again, this is really for being able to group contacts, run reports on this information. And where it becomes really helpful to me is when we start talking about client servicing broken down by tier and assigning a proactive client service model to people within our book of business that we have divided up based on, these 4 segments, if you will. So, people are probably asking okay, well, how in the world do you do this? So my recommendation to you, honestly, I would take this document and I would look through your contacts and see, if this is a logical, organizational outline and map or, clean up and organize your contacts according to this hierarchy. All right. I would limit the amount of types that you have so that, you never run the risk of a contact possibly being 2. So keep your contact type, 10 or under. And these are pretty much the standard types that I see people use. All right. And then think about, from a reporting standpoint, how best does it make sense to organize them to provide like classification or rank within their type? Does that make sense?
It does. Now, Kate, for those out there, you talk a little bit about reporting, right? Having those two different tiers, right? That main tier and then that second tier. Can you give an example of some of the reporting that you'd run within Wealthbox, that would follow along those? Maybe a couple examples, if you will.
That's a great question. So the reason we go through this exercise is a lot of times, the question that I get asked is, all right, so I need to be able to run a list of just my clients, or I need to run a list of just my top tier clients, or just my bottom tier clients, or, hey, Kate, can you get me a list of, all of the, folks in my professional network that are CPAs? I don't know. I'm making things up, but by assigning these types and categories, it allows you to group contacts together for reporting purposes. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
And so I want to jump into the database here and just show you how, let me move this out of the way. So for an example, I'm just going to use this contact here. Best practice is to build out like a truly like comprehensive overview of who this guy is. All right. Again, I come from an administrative standpoint. Regulatory requirement when we prepare new account paperwork is that we have employment information on file. This is something that's overlooked a lot and really, just makes my life more difficult as an administrative person when I go to prepare new account paperwork, when I don't have this information at the tips of my fingers. So recommendation to everybody is to build out a full comprehensive profile. Okay. You can see here where Dwight works, who he is employed by, contact information. I've got an overview here of tasks and things that, my team is working on, upcoming events. I've captured his marital anniversary, how long we've been working together. Okay. You can see here who the advisor of record is, additional contact information, that he's a client, that he's married. Okay. Custom fields to further, I like to build super personal relationships with my clients. And I love using custom fields to further, organize contacts outside of just, their type and their category, and show interests or drink preferences or favorite sports teams. Or in this case, I also show here that we meet with him on a semi-annual cadence. I've started to build out his family tree here. I've started to build out his professional network so that I can see, who my clients work with in terms of like attorneys and CPAs. I think this is super powerful. And if I can make any recommendation to you guys, it is to take the time and really build out a complete contact record. Super helpful.
Absolutely. And along with that complete contact record and the integrations that we've got, let's say you're working with Schwab, I can take that client or prospect data, have that sent over, kick off that digital account opening process with, say, a Schwab or a Laser app or a DocuPace. All of that can be done right off of the record right here. Now, as I'm taking a look at this, and on the top right of the page there, we see upcoming activities, workflow steps, and events. Kate, how does this then translate over into task management and how you all look at task management?
It's a good thing you asked. That's the second of our core competencies that I wanted to talk about. And the second of my tabs up here is my tasks. And so, as I mentioned, we believe that your CRM should be the hub of your practice for numerous reasons. One of which is to build, a historical timeline for your client relationships, including tasks, activities, appointments, phone calls, you name it. Gone are the days of Post-it notes. Gone are the days of your legal pad. Everything needs to be stored and housed in Wealthbox. All right. Because it's linked to a client contact record. So we can build out those historical timelines so that my manager, Andrew, you can see what I'm working on. If a client is to call in and I'm out of the office, you can pick up where I left off. We have a centralized place to see what's going on. All right. And I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, but a lot of times we get into advisory practices and we just see people going to too many places to figure out what's going on. They have their calendar here. They have Asana for tasks. They have, an Excel document for their sales pipeline. Like Wealthbox can solve all of that. You can standardize it and centralize it within Wealthbox. It just takes a little finessing. And so I'd like to show you today my recommendation for managing tasks within Wealthbox. I think this is super slick. but you can see, upcoming tasks, completed tasks. You've got these great filters here. You can see tasks, workflows. Okay, you all get what I'm getting at. I like to break my workflows out separately. I'll take you to a separate page for that, but I can see, my own tasks. I can see Andrew's tasks. I can see my team's tasks. I can build this out so that I can filter it and see what we have going on firm-wide or broken down by individual users, which is really helpful. And so one of the things we implement is an activity priority legend, if you will. And so let me just show you what I'm talking about. In an effort to reduce unnecessary communication around action items, I like to standardize the way we enter tasks by giving them a priority. And we've assigned these definitions. If I put in a task with a high priority, it means it needs to be completed by the end of the day. If I put it into the medium priority, it means it needs to be done by the end of the week, so on and so forth. Okay. We are no longer keeping projects in Asana. We are no longer keeping projects on Post-it notes. We're going to put them into Wealthbox as a low priority, which means it's ongoing. It's not time sensitive. It can be done whenever you've got time to do it, but it's going to live in Wealthbox. All right. And so the way this looks is the priority corresponds with these color codes here. So I can see what's top priority, down to lowest priority. So that I can very easily prioritize my day. By looking at this list, I'm like, oh, geez, I got to get this done and this done soonest. First of all, they're overdue. They're a high priority because they're indicated here in red. And I can see that this is, a new revenue opportunity because it says I need to ACH in 50 grand for Pan Helper, right? And so I can open up this task and I can see here. And one of the cool features that I love here, Andrew, is the ability to utilize templates. And I'll get into that in just a second. But basically, I utilize the template that pre-filled the information for me, pre-filled, the description or, additional communication that I've had with the client about this request, linked to the client's contact record, all time-stamped, and it shows up very beautifully on my, new and improved to-do list that is no longer on Post-it notes. Have I said we're no longer using Post-it notes?
Yes.
I hope I made that loud and clear. Another really big takeaway here is these activity templates or task templates are an absolute game changer. So much of what we do in an investment, advisory practice is repeatable. Okay. We do a lot, all of our clients are different, but the things we do for them are the same. And so in an effort to reduce the amount of typing we do in a day, I like to standardize and use templates. So here's an example, account closures, account transfers. I'm going to open this up so you can see a whole list of templates here. But here's a list basically of repeatable things that I would highly suggest that you standardize and template within Wealthbox. All right. So that, and I'm just going to go back and use a Benny change as an example, right? Let's say I need to do a Benny change for one of my clients. I'm going to open up my template, scroll down here to Benny change. Okay, I'm going to put it in for today. It's assigned to me. I could assign it to another team member, what have you. It, gives me the category, so it's now searchable and reportable. I can make it a high, medium, or low priority. This is how then I'm, indicating with the stars and the color coding, the level of importance. And now in the description box, I have everything that I need from the custodial end to fill out my Benny change paperwork and task it off to my teammates. Who's the current Benny, the additional new information that they need. I'm not having to retype the same thing over and over and over again. It's a couple clicks of a button. Did I link it to a contact record?
Right there.
I can link it to my guy, Dwight. And easy as that.
So you've got that. And one thing that I love that, all the firms that work with Simplicity, that color coding, I think, is just such a simple way to take a look at it and to be able to see it. Now, taking this idea, and I love that idea of task templates too. We'll circle back. We did have a question from the group on that. We'll circle back on the back end. Taking this a step further and just widening things from just the task side, talk a little bit about calendar management and what you're working with firms on. I think when we get feedback from firms that are coming from either having no CRM or perhaps a legacy CRM, one of the biggest things we hear is, holy cow, this made it a lot easier to manage not just my calendar, but especially if we're not working in the same geographic location as a lot of firms, I
Sure.
can now manage our team's calendar. Can you talk a little bit about that and how you work with firms on the calendar management side?
Absolutely. Yeah, that piggybacks really nicely on this. And it's the same logic, I guess. Having a centralized place for managing your tasks is important if you're going to operate as a team. Same thing as having a centralized calendar, right? Being able to see, what we have going on over the course of a week. Being able to filter my calendar here. If I had other team members, I could, see my calendar, my entire team's calendar. I could filter it down and just see, my teammate Joe's calendar. Being able to color code it so I can very clearly see what different types of appointments are what. And then, you were talking about integrations. One of the biggest takeaways here, and something we recommend to everybody that we work with, is the utilization of an online calendar management tool like Calendly or G Reminders to really simplify the client experience and really just create a massive efficiency for the team internally, being able to sync online calendars with Wealthbox, linking it to client contact records, building out those historical timelines, and then utilizing, we'll get into in a second, workflows to help manage the processes for executing these various appointments.
Yeah, and it's funny. The first office I worked in, it was pop your head up and kind of holler around and see if folks were going to be available on Thursday afternoon for a call. This is a little bit different than that. Thinking of,
Absolutely solves that.
for a lot of firms out there that are in growth mode, right? Q1's just finished, Q2, they're starting to get a little clearer view of some of their goals. I think opportunity management is one of the other pieces that we hear about and we get asked a ton about from a best practices standpoint, especially for firms that may have multiple different lines of business or ways that they work for clients. As you're working with firms and as they're working with Simplicity in general, are there any best practices on the opportunity management side that you're chatting with folks about?
Totally. And it all comes back to the same point that you really should be utilizing your CRM as the hub of managing your operational practice. And it's just like we see people using Outlook for calendar, we see them using Asana for tasks, we see them using a spreadsheet for your sales pipeline. I think that Wealthbox's pipeline management tool is super slick and I really like it. So I'm going to open up another tab here. Under opportunities is where we're going to keep a record of our sales pipeline. And essentially I've built out here like what my new client onboarding process looks like, right? We've got the introductory qualifying phone call, then we have a discovery meeting, then we put together a plan, and then we might have a paperwork meeting, and then the behind the scenes onboarding. Okay, you get what I'm getting at, right? What that new prospect onboarding process looks like. We've created a stage within the Wealthbox pipeline to show like where the prospect is at. And we take it another level further. You see 401k and property sale here. Not only do we track like new business prospects off the street, but we also track new revenue opportunities for existing business. Those are other metrics that we find that advisors like to track. And so I think this is super slick. It's a really pretty layout. You can change it here, but my favorite view, so you can see it as a list here, or you can see it as a graph, which I think is super cool. I prefer this layout because when, let's say, Joyce moves from the introductory phase to the discovery meeting, I can just drag and drop her here, and then we have that meeting, and I move her here. It's just a super user-friendly system, and I like to be able to, in our Monday morning staff meetings, show what prospects we have in the pipeline, where they're at, move them up, celebrate the wins. I think this is really cool. And just, again, a way to centralize some of your business management processes and metrics. I hope that this, eliminates another place that you're having to go to figure out kind of where people are at in the process. Eliminate that spreadsheet, get it into Wealthbox, have it linked to these contact records, just for efficiency's sake.
It's interesting, as you think about this and the takeaways from this, I think a lot of folks have looked at opportunity pipelines maybe as a singular pipeline. And as you see
Yeah,
with that drop down up top, I think actually delineating, and you make a great point, the difference between, say, a new client onboarding versus an opportunity with an existing client that
mhm,
may be moving forward, right? And actually building out those different pipelines
totally.
and then having the ability to customize each point because as you and I both know, let's say it's a new insurance client, that's going to be handled differently, say, from a financial planning client or a different type of client as well from that end, right? And you
It's
can go
cool.
in
And
and
then
edit those.
you can differentiate fee structures. It's slick. It's super slick. We could have a whole hour-long conversation just around opportunities, Andrew.
Yeah,
I won't
absolutely.
get too into the weeds, but I think this is a really helpful feature, and it is one of our 5 core competencies because, as you've heard me say, we believe all of this should be centralized in one place to eliminate all of the unnecessary external places that you're having to go to manage your business.
Yeah, we've had a couple questions come in about, and we can shift the conversation a bit here from as you've gone through that cleanup process, taken some of these best practices, brought on what makes sense for you. The biggest discussion point that I know that Kate, we've talked about as you're working
Sure.
with firms from a scaling standpoint is oftentimes workflows, right?
Absolutely.
And so, from that standpoint, I know that Simplicity has some unique ways of working with folks on the workflow side. Can you speak a little bit to that and what that process looks like, especially as you're getting to know firms and actually looking to implement workflows?
Totally. So a couple things to note there. We believe that anything in your world that is repeatable is workflowable. And so in an effort to work smarter and not harder and just reduce redundancy, we suggest writing workflows to manage all of your repeatable processes. So, and people ask this all the time, well, why use tasks and workflows? Okay, follow my logic on this. A task is a call to action. It is something that needs to be done. Hey, Andrew, I need you to ACH out 10 grand for this client from their trust account. All right. I need you to do something. How you execute that request, how you provide servicing to your client around that request, that's the workflow. Okay. Let me give you a better example. I'm going to use Benny Change as an example. Okay. Hey, Andrew, I need you to update someone's Benny. All right. What goes into updating a Benny? Well, we need to, confirm that we have all the information to prepare the paperwork. We need to prepare the paperwork. We need to send it out for signature. We need to make sure we get it back. We need to save it to the server, submit it to the custodian, make sure the custodian does what we ask them to do, close the loop with the client, and let them know that we've done what they have asked us to do. All right. It's a several step process. And probably some of you can do it in your sleep, but it's nice to have a standard set of operating procedures documented in one centralized place in a workflow format to manage the flow so that you don't drop any balls, nothing slips through the crack, and you have a very consistent way of delivering that experience. All right. And so workflows are everybody's, bright, shiny object these days. And so here's some examples of workflows that we recommend that you incorporate into your practice. All right. All, again, are repeatable things that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, starting with the onboarding of a new client. All right. That is a very repeatable process and something that you should absolutely standardize just to, reduce the reinventing of the wheel every single time you go to onboard somebody, right? It's the introductory call should be the same introductory call for every prospect. The discovery meeting should be the same discovery meeting for every prospect. You get what I'm getting at? Then you need to look at your team's tasks. What is your team doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Are they closing accounts, transferring assets, depositing checks? Do people pass away? Do they divorce? Is there retirements? Okay. Anything that is repeatable is workflowable. And I highly suggest you take the time to build out a standard operating procedure and document it in a workflow format and house it in your CRM to standardize the way your team is operating. It will help with your team to know what is expected of them. They know exactly how to operate. They know exactly what the timeline and expectation is for serving your clients. Your clients then have a very consistent experience on their end and know what to be expecting from your team and are, kept in the loop when there's money in motion and the loop is closed when a request has been completed, so that they know that the ACH has been issued, and money should be expected in their Bank of America account by the end of the week. Just good client servicing to close the loop with clients. And then you're not limited to just prospecting and onboard and prospecting and client workflows. There are other repeatable things that you do within your practice on a daily and weekly basis that should also be standardized, and a workflow should be written to help manage things like billing, marketing events, hiring new hires, unfortunately terminating employees. You can see my list here, but start to brainstorm and think about all of the repeatable things that you do, and standardize them.
And on that note, as we hop over to the Workflows app within Wealthbox, a couple things to note within Workflows. The first step is always the hardest, right, Kate? And I think that you hear the same thing that we do. I love the idea of Workflows. Where does it start? A couple things I want to make mention of as we go to the Manage Templates button up top right. For everyone that's on this call that currently uses Wealthbox, we actually have a workflow library of 10 different workflows. Now, I always say there's very small chance that this workflow is going to fit exactly what you're doing, but you're going to be able to take these, actually go in and duplicate, edit them, shift them around, right? So you can build things out on your own, and you're not starting from scratch. Now, Kate, I know one of the things that you and the Simplicity team do as well, that I think is oftentimes a really helpful exercise. I've got a yellow pad in front of me here. A lot of firms will yellow pad out workflows, right? Let's take those 4 or 5 core workflows. Let's actually yellow pad them out. Every firm has workflows, whether they know it or not. When a new client comes on board, people fall into line and do what they need to do. The other side would be, we hit on Post-it notes earlier on a negative side, but on a positive side, firms will oftentimes take a whiteboard and Post-it note out exactly what a workflow looks like today and what in a perfect world it would look like. One other note that I will make for firms that work with Simplicity, they have built out their own customized workflow library within Wealthbox as well that is available to folks and clients of Simplicity. So that is one definite value add there as well. I'll take one of the overarching questions about workflows high end.
Yeah.
Kate, if you were to point out, you had a long list there. And by the way, for everybody on the call, you will have access to that list of workflows that Simplicity talks about offering, the examples there. But let's say you're starting from square one. Yeah. Are there 3 or 4 workflows that you say, look, every firm should have moving forward?
Sure. Most common: client review meeting, address change, money movement.
Yep.
3 most common things. And I want to piggyback on something that you said. What I love so much about your guys' workflow templates is there's probably going to be some finessing to really tailor them to how your firm operates, but they're a really good starting point. And what you said, before we start to build out a workflow within Wealthbox, we always whiteboard the workflow first, whether it's on a Word doc or in Workflowy online, or literally on a whiteboard with Post-it notes. Think about, what is step 1? What is the chronological order that things need to get done? Yep. All right. What's the timing associated with that outline? It allows you just to be able to easily manipulate things and move things around. And this is a really awesome opportunity to think about, what do you want your design, what do you want your client experience to feel like? Write the workflow for that. Do you want the client to be kept in the loop? Do you want there to be follow-up emails? Do you want them to receive condolence flowers? Do you want them to receive in an address change workflow? I like this one. I saw this one the other day. We're preparing paperwork, we're updating all of our systems. If they purchase a new home, sending them a housewarming gift. Let's write that into the workflow. We've all been on the receiving end of a really wonderful customer experience. I like to write the workflows to execute that. It's kind of your opportunity to write your dream experience. So I would first whiteboard that dream experience outside of Wealthbox, and then come to Wealthbox, take one of these templates, in an effort to work smarter, not harder, take the client review template and think about what your client review process needs to look like internally, and just build upon or adapt your templates to the firm's process. Absolutely.
Yeah. One quick note, and I know we've got a few questions in the Q&A as we're buttoning up here over the next couple of minutes. Make sure to get your questions in the Q&A section. We'll be sure to address those on the back end. Kate, with a smile on my face, I know that one of the things that you're talking with every firm that you work with about is simply making sure that you've got all of your integrations connected that you've got in Wealthbox. As we go right next to your name up on the top right with that little 3 dots and applications right under there, I think one of the other pieces is just making sure that you have all of your integrations connected that you have available, especially for everyone on the call that's added a new piece of technology over the past couple quarters. Perhaps you've added a custodian or a new planning vendor out there. Take a look. We are always adding new integrations, but also you're going to be able to surface a lot of information here. So, we talked about it earlier, digital account opening. If you've added a new custodian or you've added some functionality, make sure to look through things here. I think that's one of the other pieces. Let's make sure we're using the tool that we've got to the highest degree possible. Kate, anything particular that you're hearing from firms that you're working with, or any integrations that come up on an ongoing basis for you?
We've recently made the change from Calendly to G Reminders, and having a wonderful user experience with G Reminders. I honestly, the online calendar management tool is one of the greatest efficiency pickups, whether it's Calendly or whether it's G Reminders. That is just such an absolute game changer and saves so many hours a week in manual scheduling, just an improvement to the client experience. So if you're not using an online calendar management tool, I would highly suggest you look into one.
Absolutely. With that, Kate, as we button up our time here, thank you as always. If you are looking to get in contact with us here at Wealthbox, you can always hop over to wealthbox.com. There's quite a bit of information on there, including over 100 different how-to videos that have recently been updated, and we're continuing to add to there, as well as product tours. And you can get in touch with our sales team there if you're curious about switching over to Wealthbox as well. On Kate's end with the Simplicity Operations team, feel free to reach out to them with any questions about how they're engaging with firms. They are very well versed in the Wealthbox ecosystem, front, back, side to side. And we will have these resources that were discussed here at simplicityoperations.com/Wealthbox. With that, we appreciate everyone joining today. Have a fantastic afternoon. And Kate, as always, thanks for being a great partner and joining us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Andrew. Have a good one.
All right. See you, everybody.
See ya.